and welcome along. If this is your first time playing Eve, if you're a new bro, then welcome to you. This is an introductory video designed for brand new players. If you've never flown a ship in Eve before, this is to help you get familiar with how to fly a ship and the very basic functions of flying a ship in Eve Online. So, I'm out here in space, undocked from a station in a Merlin, a nice Caldari ship, and I'm going to fly around a few things. So just in case you're wondering what we're looking at here, this is a billboard. You can see billboards in space in New Eden, and they're usually near stargates, and there is a stargate over there. And as all I'm doing is left clicking and on the screen and moving my mouse, and that allows me to rotate my camera around and see various different objects. And there is a planet right there. I can click on that, and it's called Sazio 7, and it is 57,247 kilometers away from me. So shows you that space is vast, and Eve Online represents this very well. You get to see just how huge space is when you are flying around through this game. So it's not the most intuitive game, and that's why I'm going to give you a bit of an instructional video. In a previous video I've talked about why Eve Online is not a flight simulator. You're not sitting in a cockpit and flying around space. You are generally using a 3D third-person view of your ship, because it helps you get much more of a feel for what's going on around you. So, how do you move? How do you start flying around in Eve? Let's say if I wanted to try to move up near towards the rings of this planet, what would I do? Well, the very simplest thing is I simply double click in space. So if I double click in space, you'll see that my ship's engines will fire up and I will start moving towards this area of space. And you'll also see that down here my speedo goes from 0, as I was completely still, and goes up to its maximum speed. And if I want to adjust my course at all, I can zoom in to my craft by using my mouse wheel to zoom right in, and I can click and drag around to view it from a different angle. So if I wanted to change my course, I don't have to stop. I can just simply double click over in another area of space, and you'll see that my ship will start to change directions. And you'll notice that even though I am traveling pretty fast, I'm doing 370 meters per second, it will still take me a long time to get to this planet. I'm covering about a kilometer every 3 seconds, just under 3 seconds, so it would take me quite some time to get here. So I can also adjust my speed in here. I can come to a complete stop by pressing this minus sign. Just press that. You'll see it says the ship is stopping and my speed goes right down, my engines power down, and I am now stopped in space. So if I want to move, and I want to just move in a straight line, I can just press this plus sign and my ship will immediately accelerate without turning. You can see the little jet rays flowing out the back there, showing that I'm moving, and I have accelerated up to almost full speed. I can also adjust the speed manually by clicking somewhere inside the speedometer. So if I want to slow down just a little bit, and you can see that the speed is adjusting in there, in the little black box, breakout box there, I can choose a speed. So if I wanted about 250, I can just click there, and you can see the pop-up says speed changed to 250 meters per second, and I have slowed down. And then I can adjust that to just over 100 meters per second by clicking there. And once again, I can just double click somewhere in space to change the direction that I'm going at. And that will not accelerate me, it will just keep my current speed. So with my speed set at 102 meters per second here, let's just say that I stop the ship. And if I was to then just press for full speed, it will now bring me right back up to max speed in the same direction. So that's your fundamentals of simply moving around in space. And I'm going pretty fast, but you will also observe that space is pretty vast, and I am not going to get anywhere too quickly by doing this. So I need to have a way of moving quicker, and indeed in Eve I do. I can warp to various locations. Before I do that though, let's just go and have a look over here. I'll just click on, that's a ship down here, Punisher, that's a ship. You can see the information popping up. On selected item, I've got the name of the pilot, I've got the type of the ship, and then I can click here, and this is the actual object. So what I can do is, if I go up to my selected items here, there's some buttons up here, and I can click approach. You can see I'm traveling away from this statue erected in the middle of space to commemorate a great journey of a capsuleer. So clicking approach, you can see that I am 62 kilometers away from the statue here, and I am approaching it, and you can see the speed at which I'm approaching it here. And you can see there's a whole bunch of ships sitting around here. There's a Condor, the Punisher, there's a Crow, and another Punisher, and another Punisher, and an Atron, and you can see those ships just warping away. Now maybe they're afraid because I'm flying towards them. I doubt it. But that's one way of choosing an item. I could have actually just double-clicked near the item, but selecting the item and then clicking approach works as well. So there's also some other options that have become available to me. I can orbit this. I'm not really close enough to orbit it. I could orbit it at a larger distance. So I could right click on the orbit icon and set a default orbit distance. And I could set that at, let's say, 30,000 meters, which is 30 kilometers. Click OK. And if I was to now press orbit, you'll see that I'm orbiting now. I'm going to move into an orbit around this object. It's moving me out because I'm a little bit too close, and then it will start to orbit around the chosen object. And this is a very useful feature for combat and for some other activities that you might want to engage in, is orbiting. So I'm on a path to slowly move at a 30 kilometer distance around this statue memorial. So another option that I've got as well, I won't go into too much into these things along here, they're a different set of things, but I can keep objects at range as well. So let's just say, what's my keep at range? It's by default it's set to 1,000 meters. So I've still got this selected, so if I click keep at range 1,000 meters, you can see that my ship is now going to keep it at range, which means that it will approach the statue and will not get within 1,000 meters of it, or it will make every attempt to keep its distance away from the object. This can be useful if you are fighting and you want to keep a good distance away from the enemy ship. You can use that, and you can set the ranges on that by right clicking it and setting a range. And you can see I'm approaching the statue, albeit a little bit slowly, and it will eventually keep at range. So I'm closing in on the object, and as we're getting down to 1,000 meters, the ship is now going to pull back and try to keep at range. And you can see this ship slows down a lot as it's trying to simply hold range here, and that's because this is an immobile object. It's not moving, and so my ship has slowed in order to maintain 1,000 meters distance, and there it is, exactly 1,000 meters. So if it was a moving ship, of course my ship would be moving to try and keep its distance from that. And once again I can just double click in space here to move closer towards the statue, and I should fly just over her head. It is possible to collide with objects in Eve, and if you do so, you will not suffer damage. You bounce off objects, but it is not useful, especially if you're in combat, to bounce off an object, because it will slow you down enormously, and you will be much easier to hit. Alright, so we've done a little bit of mucking around here with just flying around in normal space. So let's test out the warp engines on this ship, and let's warp to an object. I'm going to choose the star, and I'll show you how to warp. So first off, we can align to the object. I select it in the overview here, this sun, and then align to it. And we can see the sun over there. Things are about to get very bright. And then if I want to warp to the object, I've got a couple of different ways that I can do it. I can right click on the object in the overview and warp to within 0, or I can warp to within another set distance here, or even set a default distance for warping. I can do that, or I can go up to the selected items and I can choose warp to within 0. So I'm going to do that. I'll just zoom in on my ship a little and then warp to within 0.
Warp drive active.
And so you just heard Aura, the onboard AI, telling us that we're about to go into warp, and we've warped, and that was pretty fast. You warp at a fairly quick speed in this game. And so I'll just show you another example of that. Let me just find a planet or a moon. So there's a moon. I don't have to press align to it. I can actually just press warp to within 0. So let's choose a different moon actually. I'll choose a moon that is a little bit further away. This overview is arranged, and my one, it currently is arranged by distance, so things that are further away are further down the list. So this moon here, if I select it, is 16.3 AU away, and an AU is an astronomical unit, and it is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So that'll give you some idea as to how far away this is. So if I was traveling at my normal around about 370 meters per second, it would take me years and years to get there. So instead though, I am going to warp to this, and we'll see how long it takes us as we enter warp. First of all, the ship will align and establish a warp vector, and then it will enter warp. You can see that we're in warp, and we're covering this distance quite quickly. And when you're in warp, you can't stop until your warp is completed. You're in it for the ride. So there's our moon here. There's another that looks like the planet over there of the moon. Just check this screen. I just want to make sure there's no bad guys popping up. And there is a control tower. So let's, if I click on that, I can see that's only 99 kilometers away. And so because it's so close, I have no option to warp to. I can only approach it using my normal speed. So I won't do that because it'll take us quite a while to get there. So I can just select objects out here in space, like so. So we can see here we have what looks to be a planet, and another planet, and a customs office. And we have a couple of planets, a sun, a couple of customs officers, and a Raitaru, which is a player-owned structure. So let's go to a customs office. I'll choose this customs office in here, and then I can warp to, but this time I'm going to actually just choose the customs office in here. I'm going to right click on it and warp to within 50 kilometers of it. My ship will align.
Warp drive active.
Different ships have different align times. Small ships like this tend to align fast, and if you're in a big battleship, it's going to have a very slow align time. They can have align times 20 seconds or more, whereas this ship has a align time of around 3 seconds or so. So we're approaching the customs office. There it is. And there's a planet which is very large, and even if I zoom out to the max, too much. It would take me quite a long time to fly out to that planet. The planet is 5,600 kilometers away. So if I started flying over here and wanted to circle this planet, it would take me a very long time, as you would imagine. But my ship is currently flying in this direction as I double clicked out into space. Let's just see if we can find an asteroid. We'll fly out to an asteroid. There's an asteroid belt. It's 3 astronomical units away. I'll right click. I'll warp to within 20 kilometers of the asteroid belt, and you can see what that looks like. And I can in fact move my camera right around, and we can look at the ship as it warps through. And we can see we are approaching the asteroid belt. I will just check the combat tab because there are bad guys that loom around asteroid belts. That's what an asteroid belt looks like. You can use these for mining, and you'll often find rats in here. So as I double click out here, I will start to move towards some of these asteroids, and I can zoom right out, and you can get a bit of a look at what the asteroid field looks like. So in our overview, just so that you are aware of some of the things that you'll be looking at, you can see that's a sun with a little sun icon. These squares are stations. These are places where you can dock typically. The square ones are NPC stations. Unless you have a particularly poor standing, you will be able to dock at those. These are stargates, which allow us to transfer from one system into another. These icons here with these little arrows are player-owned stations, and you may or may not have docking access at those. I have docking access at all of these. It just depends on what settings they have set up for their particular station. And if I click here, we can see that there are asteroids, individual asteroids here, and I can see what type of materials are in the asteroids. And if we go right down, we can see that moons are identified with this symbol, planets identified with this symbol, and asteroids with this 3-dot symbol. So let's get out of this system. So I'll click on a Stargate here, and I will have an option. I can either just warp to within 0, or I can press jump, and that will warp me to the station and jump me through the Stargate. So I will click that,
Warp drive active.
and we will align and warp directly to the Stargate. So Stargates are devices that allow you to travel a very vast distance, and they are used to connect systems together. So there could be any number of Stargates in a system. This one has 3, for example, 2 there and the one that I've just come through. When you go through a Stargate, you arrive cloaked at the other side, and you can see up here, this is actually my cloaking timer, and which counts down, and it will decloak me once this time has wound down. And you get a 1-minute cloaking timer when you jump through the gate, and that means that players cannot see you. So there are some players, there's a guy right there, another player who's just arrived there. He won't be able to see me. This player here arrived in an Aries, cannot see me because I've not decloaked, but I will be decloaking shortly. And if I was to take any action, if I was to double click out here and start flying, I would immediately decloak. If I was to click on an object and approach it, or align to it, or warp to it, or dock at it, I would immediately decloak. And there you can see I've just uncloaked, so I'm now visible. These timers exist for the purpose of allowing you to avoid gate camps, or at least to give you a minute to think about what you are going to do if you were to come across a gate camp. So this is a different system, Noma, and let's just jump on through to another system. Let's click point in, and this time I will right click and go warp to within 0. So the ship will align and it will start warping towards the Stargate. And when we get there, we will just sit there because we have not set anything to jump through. But because it's already selected, I can actually click jump and it will jump me through that gate. It pops you up and then it fires you through the gate, and you can see us in the warp gate tunnel flying through. This is a long gate by the looks of it. Alright, we arrive at the other end, we're cloaked, and so what I'll do is let's just actually show you how to plot a path to a particular system, and then we can just follow that path. So if I go to this icon here, which is our star map, I can click on that. It pops up a star map that is sometimes somewhat a little bit difficult to work with. I'll just click on the search function, which is primarily how I use it, and nearby we should have New Caldari. So if I right click New Caldari, set destination, you'll see that over here we have a route that has been plotted, and it puts down the number of steps, the number of systems to get to our destination. And so we would need to jump from Poinan, where we are at the moment, to Josemito, and then we will arrive in New Caldari. What the game does when you set a route like this is that it highlights the stargates that you'll need to jump through in yellow so that you can easily spot them. So if I click on that, I can then click jump, and it will immediately align me and walk me to that gate and then jump me through that gate. When I pop up at the other side, the New Caldari Stargate will appear in yellow so that I can easily spot that. It just means that if you've got a busy overview, you can easily spot the Stargate that you need to choose in order to get to the destination that you are wanting to arrive at. So there's the Stargate, and we will just jump through it. So the game will also, the tutorial will also suggest to you the use of Autopilot. And as you can see here, if we pop through the other side, we're cloaked, we've got a cloak timer. New Caldari is highlighted in yellow, and it's actually already selected, so all I have to do up here, and you can see that it's selected here, is simply click jump, and it will move me to that particular region. So let's do that. Let's jump through there.
Warp drive active.
And then when we get to New Caldari, I think I will just describe to you a couple of other bits and pieces, and then we'll finish up. You can see ships just flown up there, over there. That's a miasmos, a transportation ship. So we're arriving in New Caldari. Here we are. So I will let's just fly out to the sun just for kicks. And I want to describe to you a couple of other things. We'll start over here with these anomalies. So what you'll see if you happen to have this probe scanner window up here is you will have anomalies that will pop up, and you can see them. If you hover over them, it will tell you the type of site. This is a combat site. This is another combat site. If you were to press this button right here, it would warp you directly to that combat site. And that would be bad if you don't have a ship that can handle what's in that site. So you do have to be very cautious about just flying to these anomalies that you can find in here. You can switch them off by clicking in here and unselecting anomalies if you don't want to accidentally go to one of them, for example. There's another type of thing that can appear in there, and I will go back into a system and we can have a look at that. I did spot one back in the previous system that we were in, so that was Josemito. So what I'll do is just go back into our star map, and I will search for the system that we started in, which was Cesio. So I'm going to right click and set destination there, and you'll see that the route pops up here. So if and of course it appears in yellow here, the stargates that I need to jump through. So if I select jump, we're going to fly back to where we have come from. But what I'm going to do this time is press Autopilot. And you'll see that aura tells us that the autopilot is engaged, and you're going to notice the difference here as I approach using autopilot. So I don't have to control anything now. Aura will fly us along this route until we get to our destination. And you might think, awesome, that's fantastic, I don't have to worry about clicking through stargates. However, you will notice when we approach the next stargate, because the autopilot has set the course, that it will be a little bit different. So we're coming up on the stargate. Now remember how when I was doing it manually, we arrived right up near the stargate and I could just press jump.
Approaching stargate.
When the autopilot does it, you arrive 10 kilometers away from the stargate and then you have to manually approach it, which is what Aura is doing right now. You might think, well, that's not that big of a deal. And sure, if you are completely comfortable that there is no danger around anywhere and you're not carrying loot that is valuable, you could use autopilot. But this is how people get ganked in EVE Online. By using autopilot, I'm going to press Control Space here to stop the ship. So it will warp to the location, but it will then not jump through the gate because I've interrupted its next action. And you'll see that the autopilot has been cancelled. So you get ganked by autopiloting, showing up 10 kilometers away, as you can see here, from the gate. So I'm 9,200 meters away from the gate. These are Concorde ships, by the way. So these are the ships where if you attack someone in space, and that is a huge player-owned ship, an Obelisk. They are very, very enormous ships for transporting goods. This is exactly the type of ship that would get ganked, right? Carrying a lot of cargo, very valuable ship, could be billions on board this. And so pirates could sit and wait near stargates, and as the ship is approaching, as this one is on autopilot. This is not clever. So this pilot is away doing something else, and he's got his ship set to autopilot, and now he's just jumped through the gate by the looks of it. And if I was a pirate, I could sit here at this gate. When a big ship like that rolls in, I could cargo scan it and see what it's got, and if I think, oh yeah, that's lots and lots of loot, what I could do is I could have my buddies who are all set to gank, so they'll be in cheap ships that deliver a lot of DPS, or damage per second, and they would arrive and shoot the living crap out of that ship. Concorde, who as you can see are around here, would blow up all of the ships that had attacked that large obelisk, because that's what Concord do. They shoot ships that aggress other ships within high security space. So that's any space from 0.5 through to 1.0. They are the space police, if you like. However, the obelisk would drop all of its loot, and then I can have other friends come along and simply scavenge all of that loot, and we could get a big take. And so you'd gain more than you'd lose from losing the ganking ships. So this is a reason why autopilot is something you have to be very careful about. I use it on occasion, but only when I'm in a ship that nobody's really going to be interested in ganking and I'm not carrying a lot of cargo. If I've got expensive cargo, there's no damn way that I am going to be autopiloting. So we're in Poinan, and I wanted to point out these cosmic signatures. These are a little different from the anomalies that we saw earlier. I just want to, if I can find them, can I align to that? No, I can't. So anyway, if I align to the star, maybe I will be able to see them. Yeah, there's one right there. So over here, there is a cosmic signature OFX984, which is this one right here. Now, you cannot fly to these. Like if I tried to select this and right click on it, there's no options for me to fly to it. And this is because these have to be scanned down first before I can actually fly to them, and that involves the use of a probe launcher and scanner probes so that I can scan them down. And these will contain various different things. They might contain wormholes, combat sites, gas sites, relic or data sites. So if you see those out there and you can't fly to them, don't be surprised. The ones with a blue outline around here are going to be player-owned structures. If you hover over down here, you can see that you've got like a little bit of a key here, a legend of what's going on. So you've got structures out there, and agent objectives, anomalies, signatures, landmarks, personal, and shared. So yeah, so those are the things that you might spot if you are flying around in space, if you're wondering what they are. So look, that's probably enough for this particular episode. You should have a pretty good idea by now about how to fly around to different locations, how to just fly around in space, how to warp out to particular locations. This is a player-owned structure. I'm just going to double click out here. How to adjust your speed, how to use stargates, how to set a course. So hopefully that gets you started. This is for raw beginners, obviously, and yeah, from here we can move into a bit more complicated and interesting things. But I hope that you found that to be useful. So until next time, fly safe, and I will see you in the stars. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by donating Plex in-game using your Plex Vault. If you are not able to give Plex, you can donate ISK. If you do donate, please make sure to flick me an Eve mail and make your donations to Exalted. That's EXZOLTED. Thanks.